In the United States, a day of last-minute appeals failed to stop the execution of America's most notorious mass murderer. John Wayne Gacy killed 33 boys and young men during the late 70s and buried them under his Chicago home. As Ken Burslam reports, at 3:01 Australian time, Gacy finally paid the ultimate price.
John Wayne Gacy, it's time for you to die!
Amazing scenes in Chicago as a crowd calls for the death of a serial killer.
We are here because we believe 3 strikes and you're out. John Wayne Gacy didn't have 3 strikes, he had 33.
A helicopter carried John Wayne Gacy on his last ride to the cell where he'd spend his final hours as time and appeals ran out and officials kept up a series of situation reports.
Won't be surprised if they try something else here in the last 4 hours, but we don't see where they have any legal avenues left.
A fitting end to a horror story that began with the discovery of 33 bodies under a Chicago house, all the victims of Gacy, a prosperous businessman, a man who dressed as a clown to entertain children, revealed as America's most notorious serial killer. Tonight, at the end of an exhaustive legal process, he had his last meal.
He did have the butterfly shrimp, and he said it was very good.
Gacy spent his final hours in this cell before being taken to an adjoining room and placed on a bed. A needle was inserted into his arm, and as 2 executioners pushed buttons, a poisonous mixture of drugs put him to sleep and stopped his heart.
We're not civilized. We're a violent, terrible country that does not respect life.
But among the relatives of Gacy's 33 victims, this was a time of sweet revenge. Ken Burslam, 10 News.
And from the macabre to...
This afternoon, finally paying the price for the rape and murder of 33 young men.
Outside Chicago's Stateville prison tonight, there were more cheers than tears for the execution of serial killer John Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy was pronounced dead at 12:58 a.m.
Lethal injection ending the life of America's worst mass murderer, who until the end was denying his guilt.
If you're going to go ahead and execute me, go ahead and do it, but you will have not have gotten the killer.
Gacy spent 14 years on death row for the murders of 33 young men and boys. Many were tortured and raped, their bodies buried under his house. To the family of at least one victim, a lethal injection was the soft option.
I feel he should have had something done 33 times, just like he did to other people 33 times.
Throughout the day, Chicago celebrated the prospect of Gacy's death.
Tomorrow morning, John Wayne Gacy, you're going to wake up dead.
Gacy dodged execution with more than 20 legal appeals. In that time, he profited from his notoriety, selling his crude artwork for more than $100,000, and from his private hotline, where people paid to hear his plea of innocence.
Over the past 14 years, I, John Wayne Gacy, have been appealing my conviction for the murder of 33 young men and boys.
Apart from a handful of anti-death penalty protesters outside the prison, tonight few people in America were mourning Gacy's death. In the United States, Mark Burrows, National 9 News.
The Gold Coast policeman has been suspended after being
ended the life of John Wayne Gacy, who was convicted of murdering 33 teenagers and young men.
After 14 years, 52-year-old John Wayne Gacy lost the battle against his death sentence, insisting until the very end he was an innocent man.
For 14 years, I've been fighting the same battle. All I want is the truth to be learned, that I did not commit all the crimes.
But in 1978, Gacy confessed to 33 brutal murders, his victims all young men and boys, most of them buried under his Chicago home. For 6.5 years, Gacy got away with murder. Few suspected this successful building contractor, who liked to dress up as a clown, was a serial killer.
Talk about inhumane. Did Gacy think of anything being humane when he tortured and killed our boys?
A helicopter brought Gacy to the Illinois prison that houses the death chamber. He spent his final hours in this cell, visited by his family and a priest, as his lawyers filed last-minute appeals without success.
His last words were, in essence, that taking his life would not compensate for the loss of the others.
In the end, nothing stood in the way of Gacy's execution, a lethal injection ending the life of America's most notorious serial killer. In the United States, Tony Coughlin, 7 Nightly News.